Let's get one thing straight. Your peace is not a negotiation table. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they want to be there. So let's talk about the 7 UN acceptable behaviors you need to stop tolerating right now. Because if you don't, they will cost you your confidence, your energy, and eventually your sanity. You think you're being a good person by staying quiet, by not rocking the boat, by giving people chance after chance after chance. But what you're really doing is teaching them that it's okay to hurt you. You think patience makes you strong, but there's a difference between patience and self-abandonment, and too many people confuse the two. When someone disrespects you and you stay silent, they don't see your silence as grace. They see it as permission. And the longer you let it happen, the harder it gets to recognize yourself in the mirror. Because little by little, your dignity starts to erode under the weight of your own tolerance. You are not kind for allowing disrespect. You are not noble for putting everyone's needs above your own. That's not compassion. That's conditioning. You were trained to believe that if you just love people hard enough, they'll change. But here's the truth. People don't change because you sacrifice yourself. They change when they lose access to you. You are not required to keep proving your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding your value. Your energy is a currency. Stop giving discounts to people who only show up to drain it. Every time you excuse toxic behavior, you betray the part of yourself that knows better. That inner voice. The one that whispers, "This doesn't feel right," you silence it every time. You stay for one more insult, one more guilt trip, one more manipulation wrapped in a half-hearted apology. And the more you silence that voice, the more lost you become. You start questioning your own reality. You start asking yourself, was it really that bad? You gaslight yourself before they even get the chance to. That's what happens when you tolerate toxicity. It rewires your mind to believe that pain is a price you must pay to feel loved. You call it loyalty. You call it love. You call it being the bigger person. But if it's costing you your peace, your power, and your identity, it's not noble. It's destructive. You can't save someone who keeps using your forgiveness as fuel for more damage. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. And no, you're not being too sensitive. You're just finally waking up to the fact that your empathy has been weaponized against you. They'll say you're overreacting when you finally speak up. They'll call you dramatic when you enforce a boundary. They'll act like you're the problem when you refuse to carry the weight of their chaos. But that's the price of awakening. When you stop accepting crumbs, the people who feasted on your silence will call you selfish. Let them. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them throw their tantrums. Because the second you stop tolerating what hurts you is the second you start respecting yourself. You're not here to be someone's emotional punching bag. You're not here to walk on eggshells so other people can feel comfortable in their dysfunction. You're not here to be agreeable at the expense of your soul. You were not born to be a peacekeeper in a war someone else created. You were born to protect your spirit, your mind, your energy. And if that makes you too much for some people, then those people were never meant to have you. Stop giving your best to people who give you their bare minimum. Stop shrinking yourself so they can feel big. Stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided to misunderstand you. You are not hard to love. You are not asking for too much. You are simply asking the wrong people. And the longer you tolerate the wrong behavior, the further you drift from the life you're meant to live. Because nothing destroys self-worth faster than allowing mistreatment and calling it love. It is not your job to absorb someone else's emotional immaturity. You are not responsible for fixing people who refuse to fix themselves. It is not kindness to endure pain silently. That is self-neglect dressed up as virtue. True kindness includes kindness to yourself. You don't have to light yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You don't have to keep quiet to be accepted. You don't have to tolerate toxic behavior just to maintain a relationship that's already bleeding you dry. Some people will only treat you right when they fear losing you, and some won't even do it then. That's when you need to decide, do I stay where I'm disrespected, or do I walk away and find peace? Because every time you tolerate disrespect, you build a cage around your spirit, and eventually you'll forget what freedom even felt like. That's how emotional prisons are built. Not with barbed wire, but with silence, with it's okay, with maybe they didn't mean it. The truth is, people will push every boundary you don't enforce. They will test your limits to see how much they can get away with. And if you keep allowing it, it becomes normal. And when disrespect becomes your normal, love becomes foreign. You start craving chaos because it's familiar. You start mistaking pain for passion. That's not love. That's trauma. And you don't heal trauma by staying in the storm. You heal it by walking out of it and never looking back. You're not being cruel by protecting your peace. You're not being cold by walking away from what harms you. You're not being difficult by demanding respect. That's called healing. That's called growth. And sometimes growth looks like becoming the villain in someone else's story just so you can become the hero in your own. You don't owe anyone an explanation for evolving. You don't need permission to honor your own soul. You don't need validation from the very people who wounded you. Your silence has spoken long enough. Your tolerance has enabled long enough. Your spirit has been stretched, bruised, and tested long enough. This is your wake-up call. This is your moment. You don't have to keep tolerating what breaks you just because you're afraid of being alone. Being alone in peace is better than being surrounded in pieces. Your healing begins the moment you say, I deserve more. And the people who truly value you will never put you in a position where you have to question your worth in the first place. If someone needs to control you to feel close to you, that's not love. It's ownership. And if someone constantly gives you just enough to keep you confused, just enough to make you stay, but never enough to feel safe, seen, or supported, then that's manipulation, not connection. You were not born to be someone's emotional puppet, constantly second-guessing yourself, constantly tiptoeing around moods and walking on eggshells just to be tolerated. Real love is not a performance. Real love doesn't keep score. It doesn't come with ultimatums. It doesn't show up only when it's convenient. It stays when it's hard. It listens when it's uncomfortable. It respects you when it doesn't agree with you. If someone only treats you right when you're pleasing them, that's not love. That's control disguised as affection. There are people who will condition you to believe that you must earn their approval every single day. One mistake, one disagreement, one moment of standing up for yourself, and suddenly you're the enemy. That is not respect. That is a trap. You're not in a relationship, you're in a power struggle, where your silence is the currency and your pain is the collateral. Anyone who uses fear, guilt, or abandonment to get what they want from you is not loving you. They are managing you. And you are not meant to be managed. You are meant to be honored. You are meant to be met with honesty, not hot and cold games that leave you emotionally dizzy. The people who truly love you don't make you beg for consistency. They don't disappear when they feel challenged. They don't shame you into silence or punish you with distance. Love doesn't slam the door every time you speak your truth. Love doesn't weaponize your vulnerability and then call it a joke. Love doesn't hide behind excuses like, that's just how I am, or you're too sensitive. When someone cares, they adjust. When someone respects you, they listen. When someone is real, they don't make you question reality every time they hurt you. They take accountability, they grow, they show up. And when they mess up, they don't just say sorry, they change. You cannot keep accepting pain and calling it passion. You cannot keep mistaking control for care. If someone constantly needs you to shrink so they can feel secure, if they always need to win, always need to dominate, always need to remind you of how lucky you are to have them, then that's not partnership. That's possession. You are not someone's emotional pet. You are not meant to be trained, tamed, or tolerated. You are meant to be celebrated, respected, and understood without conditions attached to your worth. Some people will only want you when you're weak. They'll only love the version of you that is easy to manipulate. The moment you grow, the moment you set a boundary, the moment you stop needing their approval, they'll turn on you. Not because you did something wrong, but because you stopped playing by their rules. And in their world, love is conditional. Respect is earned by obedience. Affection is used as a weapon. But you were not built to survive off scraps of affection and crumbs of attention. Real love doesn't starve you. Real friendship doesn't disappear when you stop being convenient. Real respect doesn't evaporate the moment you say no. You don't owe anyone a watered-down version of yourself just to keep their approval. You don't have to tolerate the emotional roller coaster of someone who only shows up when they need something from you. Love is not supposed to feel like survival. If you're always bracing for the next emotional blow, if you're constantly trying to decode mixed signals, if you're scared to speak your truth because they might leave, that's not love. That's emotional warfare. And no matter how familiar it feels, it's not where you belong. People who truly care about you don't keep you guessing. They don't make you feel like a burden. They don't vanish when life gets real. They sit in the fire with you. They stand beside you even when they're frustrated. They see your flaws and choose you anyway, not because they're blind, but because love doesn't demand perfection. It demands honesty. It demands presence. It demands effort, not control, not manipulation, not endless explanations for things that should be obvious to anyone who actually sees you. Stop chasing people who treat love like a game. Stop excusing people who only show you affection when they need something. Stop convincing yourself that one good moment makes up for all the damage. Love isn't meant to be earned by suffering, and respect isn't a reward for obedience. It's a baseline. If someone only respects you when you agree with them, that's not respect. That's a performance. And you don't have to keep acting like everything's fine just because you're afraid of being alone. Sometimes the loneliest place to be is in a room with people who pretend to care. Sometimes it hurts more to be tolerated than it does to be alone. Because at least when you're alone, you're not being lied to. You're not being manipulated. You're not being drained. Real love doesn't come with confusion. Real friendship doesn't come with hierarchy. Real respect doesn't come with fear. If you're constantly afraid to be yourself around someone, then that's not a safe space. That's a silent prison. You deserve more than conditional loyalty. You deserve more than selective compassion. You deserve more than love that disappears when you have needs. The people who truly value you will never put you in a position where you have to question your worth. They will never hold your flaws over your head. They will never make you choose between their presence and your peace. They will never ask you to abandon yourself just to stay connected to them. Stop accepting excuses for bad behavior. Stop normalizing love that leaves you empty. You don't need to work harder to prove that you're worthy of respect. You already are. If someone can't see that, it's not your job to make them. It's your job to protect your peace, your energy, and your future. People who truly love you don't just show up. They stay. They don't just say the right words. They live them. They don't just want you when you're easy to handle. They respect you even when you're messy, even when you're human, even when you're real.